Let's go straight to my next guest. Freddie Gray is deputy and US editor of the Spectator magazine and joins us now. Morning to you, Freddie.
Good morning, Julia. How are you?
Very well indeed. Well, probably doing a little bit better than Andrew, Fergie and Mandelson right now. But there is no doubt at all, while there's been so much focus in the last few years, it's been quite a long time now, 6 years since that Newsnight interview, the focus on Andrew and Fergie has been huge. There's a load of stuff in the Epstein files about them, but when it comes to the most serious allegations we've got, for which there appears to be, assuming these documents are true, evidence, Lord Mandelson is the man who's currently facing prospect of a police investigation and possibly ending up in the dock for some very serious allegations that he has passed government information, insider trading information, goodness knows what, to Epstein for Epstein's financial benefit. How serious do you think this is, and how much do you trust that there will be a proper police investigation?
I think it is very serious, and I think the demands for an investigation, particularly now Gordon Brown has weighed in, will only grow. And I think it's a real problem for Number 10 in lots of different ways. Partly it goes back to the massive error of judgment that is now clear that it was to make Peter Mandelson the ambassador in Washington.
Yeah.
And I remember so well at the time, there were a lot of people saying, well, hang on a second, what about the Epstein stuff? What about his links to China? What about all the various
I think we were all saying it.
We were all saying it. But other people were saying, well, look, we need someone who's good at sucking up to Trump. And in fairness to Mandelson, he did do that assiduously and very well. He's very good at sucking up to rich people, as these emails show all too well.
Yeah.
The trouble for Labour is that if anybody knows where all the bodies are buried at the top of the Labour Party, it's Peter Mandelson. And so if they're going to try and take him down, there's going to be a very, very vicious infight. And that will be very, very interesting for journalists to watch. It'll be very, very painful for people at the top of the Labour Party.
Yeah, and this is the thing. He's not been called the Prince of Darkness for years for no reason. He's not been able to inveigle his way back in twice having to resign over wrongdoing. Let's call it what it is: wrongdoing, lying. Lying about who'd lent him money for his home, and lying to anyone and everyone about it, and then lying over getting a passport for the Nduja brothers. I mean, he's just been up to his neck in it for years. He like Andrew, never met a dodgy billionaire he doesn't like. Let's be honest. But this is the thing. You mentioned Gordon Brown, and of course Mandelson. She was pointed out by my show yesterday by Benedict Spence. Mandelson has been appointed by 43% of Labour prime ministers. The 3 of the 7 Labour prime ministers that have ever existed, he's been appointed by them. Of course, sacked by 2 of them, not by Gordon Brown. He basically tried to talk Gordon Brown into resigning, and claims that he talked him into it some hours beforehand. He did fall on his sword after basically losing the 2010 election and being unable to form a coalition with the Lib Dems, and basically his departure was the price of any proper talks with the Lib Dems. But the interesting thing is that Gordon Brown last September, we now understand that he's now said that he'd already asked the Cabinet Office to look into what Mandelson had been revealing to Epstein. So he already had an inkling that a lot of this stuff does relate to the advisors to Gordon Brown sending stuff to Gordon Brown, CCing Mandelson in it. He was not just business secretary; he was just very, very, very close aide apparently he considered himself to be deputy prime minister to Gordon Brown, and this information was being relayed sometimes within seconds to Jeffrey Epstein. This is an incredible breach of trust, if nothing else.
Well, it is, and I think everybody always knew that New Labour had a very sordid element. And that Peter Mandelson was at the heart of that sordid element, and that was a sort of collusion, coordination between New Labour and big banks, and so on. And the kind of Mandelson-Epstein friendship really crystallises that. And I mean, Gordon Brown, well, we could have a whole hour on whether Gordon Brown was a friend of the bankers or not. But I think the fact that New Labour is going to have a reckoning now. There's a lot of people in Labour who felt that they betrayed their values as a socialist party under Tony Blair, and then a bit more.
Well, they established they weren't a socialist party. That's why they were able to win power.
Well, exactly. And as Peter Mendelson said, they're intensely relaxed about the filthy rich, rather too intensely relaxed, it seems. So, yes, I think Labour is overdue a reckoning on its past. And it's tried to sort of cover up this terrible reckoning for a long time. And I think this story may push that out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing in terms of, well, if you want a gun for me, then I've got this information on you. Do you really want to play? And I don't think you even need to say that when you're Peter Mandelson. Everyone knows, we're going to suddenly see a whole spate of stories about various people's affairs and the like. I mean, there's loads of stuff that, you hear rumours at Westminster about all the time. He'll have the dirt on everybody. That's what he does. That's how he manipulated people. That's why he was called, the Prince of Darkness. We know there are a lot of politicians who are fairly money grubbing. I'd say I wouldn't include Gordon Brown in that. I don't think it was a great prime minister, but I don't think money grubbing is one of his things. He's gone back to a very, I think, or same could argue Theresa May actually. That's there are some, David Cameron, Tony Blair, and absolutely give me money. Rishi Sunak doesn't really need it; he already had enough. But this is the thing: when you liken this, it's all been about Andrew till now, and that's about allegations that he actually the claim that he'd had sex with a girl who was 17 who was trafficked to him. This is Virginia Giuffre. A second woman has now said this. Some really unpleasant photographs. There's long been talk about this sort of very I'm going to be polite, loose lifestyle. But I think a lot of people, they're sort of more shocked by the Andrew stuff because that involves allegations of, abuse of teenage girls. Which is very different from Mandelson appearing to basically, if these emails are genuine, to have just basically, kept his rich mate happy, keeping on the payroll with him and on the promise with him by feeding him information that would make him, let's face it, millions. Talk about that 500 billion euro bailout. That would 2010. That would have made that advanced information would have made Epstein and his mates millions and millions of pounds. So there's definitely a call to question there. But which do you think is the more serious? Should we be more concerned about the allegations involving Andrew or the allegations involving Mandelson?
I think Andrew he's been sort of written off by his own family. So I think, while it's very lurid and sensational, I think everybody has pretty much established that Andrew is a priapic, an embarrassing figure for Britain and the royal family. So I would say the more immediate and dramatic scandal is about Peter Mandelson. I think also it's very interesting, the Britishness here, the British angle, because the people who have really suffered or been exposed, I should say, rather than suffered, by this scandal so far, mostly are Brits. And yet there are Americans that are caught up in this. Of course, Donald Trump, some people think he's got away with it slightly because his relationship with Epstein seems to have ended before Epstein was established as a sexual criminal. But Bill Clinton is about to testify before Congress now. How soon
will that happen? He and his wife, although Hillary says she's never even met Epstein, which I find bizarre given the New York power-rich collection of people. How soon could that be happening?
I don't think a date has been confirmed. It would be very interesting. They initially resisted it. They defied Comer, the man in charge of this congressional committee. But now they have come round to it. And what's interesting is his party didn't support him. And the theory for a long time was that the reason the Democrats didn't go after the Trump Epstein stuff was because they didn't want to embarrass Bill Clinton and other senior Democrats. Clinton made this bold stand against the congressional inquiry. But all the Democrats, and the Democrats even on the committee, voted against him because they're thinking, we're quite happy to throw Clinton to the wolves if it means hurting Trump too. Yeah. So the fact that the Democrats are now kind of turning on one of their own, the fact that I don't think a president has ever testified before a congressional inquiry like this before. That is a major, major scandal. But what I find interesting is that the sort of tabloid sense of shame that you see with Andrew and you see with Mandelson, it doesn't exist in the same way in America. I'm not saying Americans are...
Well, Bill Clinton has denied all wrongdoing, and we must stress that. Well, as Donald Trump says he's exonerated, Elon Musk, they're exonerated by all of these documents.
Indeed, but there are embarrassing photographs of Clinton in sort of, jacuzzis with young women. That's come out. So, he can deny all wrongdoing, but the Epstein muck sticks to people. And it is just a very mucky, sordid story about money, as you were saying earlier, money, power and sex. What
do you make of, the documents, again, just before this latest tranche was released, in America, there's Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers putting together a court submission, basically saying, there are about 30 men who've basically been given indemnity and have not been prosecuted. And it's quite bizarre. My God, she deserves to be behind bars, bang to rights. But it's quite bizarre that the only person who's been jailed over this and prosecuted has actually been a woman. And who are these men?
Well, exactly. And I think that is the scandal that will keep being plugged at. And until we know the answer, I think the Epstein story is just going to go on and on and on. And a lot of people who are involved in it, I've interviewed Alan Dershowitz, who's, he's mentioned he was Epstein's lawyer. He's mentioned a lot in the files.
Again, always denied wrongdoing. Yeah.
Always denied wrongdoing, but he's always said release all the files. And I think a lot of people who are involved in this have come to the conclusion it's better just release everything, and rather than this endless drip, drip, drip of different tranches of files being leaked, people just scrambling around. I mean, it's a very odd situation, isn't it, now that evidence is just sort of dumped and the public passes its way through them. And because there's millions of people doing it, lots of different scandals erupt suddenly. And it's a sort of very hard to decide what's true. Then, of course, you've got fake documents floating around.
Yep.
There's a very bizarre way of understanding what happened or what was true. And some people, the real conspiracy theorists, think this is part of the conspiracy. It's sort of bamboozle the public with information so that we can't really see who those people who are close to Epstein, who are involved in his various financial activities, who those people are.
I mean, I think it was very bizarre when Donald Trump campaigned on he would release the Epstein files and then he didn't and had to be basically bullied into it by his own party. Again, got question marks about that. It's all, I mean, as you say, the plot is thickening rather than actually more coming out. Freddie Gray from The Spectator, thank you so much. Tom Slater, listening to all of that, your response?
I think Freddie makes a really interesting point about how do we essentially, in the social media age, have a scandal like this play out in a way that actually is just and makes sense. Because when you have kind of troves of information just laid out there, obviously transparency and getting all of the truth out there sounds like a really good thing. But it does create a bit of an atmosphere for feeding frenzy, which is very easy for entirely untrue information to kind of rise to prominence. Or for things to be misinterpreted willfully in order to bring down certain individuals.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, certainly some of the things that Quiver's Caller mentioned, again, I can't find evidence for that allegation, which is why I want to, have to be careful because we just don't know what is real and what is not real. And again, we have no recollections. It's terrible having a bad memory, being mates with a paedophile billionaire.
Who among us hasn't forgotten why 75,000?
Exactly. I mean, honestly, that happens to me most years. I can never remember who'd given it to me. 10:40.